social worker at the Huntington Society of Canada, and I'm here to introduce the session organized by YPAHD, Young People Affected by Huntington's Disease, on the topic of navigating relationships. Our speakers for the session include Simon Pelland, Doug Mallock, and Mackenzie Remillard. Simon is a relationship coach currently living in Bali. We're glad to have you here from all the way across the world there, Simon. Simon's father died from HD just over 2 years ago, and he is gene positive. Simon hopes there will be a cure in his lifetime to support everyone here and to allow him to realize his beautiful goal of being a grandfather someday. Doug is no stranger to the Huntington's community. He is currently holding the position of the YPAHD President. Doug is from an HD-affected family. He is an advocate of trying to seek out and help other young people facing HD to let them know that they're not alone. Mackenzie is also an up-and-coming face within the HD community here in Canada. He is the Manitoba Chapter Youth Coordinator, as well as the Youth Engagement Coordinator on the YPAHD Executive. He has also been active in the Youth Mentoring Program and plans on continuing his involvement to fight for those who can't fight for themselves against HD. So I want to welcome all of our panelists, and I look forward to some stimulating conversation. Just to start off the conversation, guys, being part of an HD family is sometimes very similar to other families, and yet other times there's some significant differences that exist within them. And navigating relationships is just one of those. So I'm really looking forward to having an opportunity to start to explore your personal thoughts and feelings, as well as your own experiences on how you have navigated relationships, both friendship-wise and more intimate relationships. So to start off the conversation, how has growing up in an HD family affected how you enter into friendships and relationships?
Go ahead, Mac.
Growing up in an HD affected family kind of gave me this feeling that I almost had to mature and grow up a little faster, because with my mom getting sick faster over time, it's like I had more responsibilities, and my maturity level is definitely, I feel, higher because of that. So I find myself building relationships with people that are kind of a little bit older than me, like a couple years, or just more mature than some other people my age. So yeah, that's kind of how, for the friendship wise, and then significant other, it's kind of, at first I was a little hesitant about opening up about HD, but when it's the right person, you kind of get that feeling that it's okay to open up and all that sort of thing.
That's great. Thanks, Matt. Sorry, I forgot to mention that we're welcome to host any questions that anyone of the viewers might have, and we can ask the panelists. So if you just want to type those into the box on the side, I will be following that, and I'll add them in. The other thing I need to let you know is that, unfortunately, Simon won't be able to be seen live, although he is streaming with us live at the moment. So you just get to see his beautiful picture there of him being in the rainforest of Bali.
Sorry, guys.
All right. Thanks, Mac.
Oh, he's gone.
Oh, he might pop in and out too, but he'll be back. Doug, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, myself, it was kind of different because I grew up in a small community. It wasn't really a secret in our, I grew up just kind of it being an identifying factor in, not just my life, but my sister's life and our family's life. So I kind of never really knew anything but that. So I just kind of felt like I had a different filter sort of growing forward in my life when I was growing up.
Can you guys hear me okay? It's cutting out a little bit on my end.
Yep. Yeah, we're good, Simon.
All right. I'll hope for the best here then. For me, actually, I didn't grow up with Huntington's disease. I didn't even know it existed till I was 18 years old, because my dad had the disease, and he wasn't a really part of my life. My mom raised me by herself, so it actually wasn't until I was 18 that I ever even heard of the disease. And so I have a very different experience, than from the both of you guys. And for me, when it comes to relationships, I didn't open up for a while. I had a really hard time sharing about the disease because I felt that if I did share about it, I would be judged by other people. And that made me keep it close to my chest. You know, I only told immediate family and my very, very, very couple of close friends. And even then, that took a long time. So over the years, I think it wasn't until maybe 7, 8 years after I found out the disease that I actually felt willing to share more openly with people. And as far as relationships go, yeah, that was a peeling the onion back kind of process.
Awesome. Thanks, Simon. How did you decide, Simon, when the right time was to share, and who did you choose to share your story with initially?
Corey, you may be muted. I can't hear what you're saying.
Oh, I heard him.
I heard him.
I'm the problem child.
For me, yeah, well, it really depended on the stages I was at. You know, because again, for the longest time, I didn't tell anyone. You know, and my very first girlfriend that was serious, I think I was about 21 or so, and I had my very first serious girlfriend, and we were together for quite a while before I told her about it. And even the way I told her was very kind of, how would I say this? Camouflaged, not so direct. But it wasn't until I was about 26 years old where, after I got tested, was positive for the gene, that I actually would tell someone if I was dating them pretty quickly. You know, probably within the first 5 dates, if this was someone I was interested in. And that was out of kind of respect for them, you know, to realize that this is a factor. And to be honest, looking back on it now, I'm not sure if that was necessary or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like, how many of those relationships actually turn into something? And the stage I'm at now, you know, I'm about to get married, and it's the perspective I want to enter Huntington's disease is it's this terrible, horrible thing that I hope no one has to deal with. That being said, it puts us in an awkward position of trying to predict the future.
Mm-hmm.
And prepare for something that may happen a long time from now, particularly if everyone here is young people, if at all. And so we're in this position to be trying to predict the future when, meanwhile, so many other things could happen to us before that ever happens, if that happens. And so now when I look back on it, I think what the most important thing to be able to do is to be able to build trust with someone. And when we have that, whether it's Huntington's disease or something else, we really got a chance to have a great relationship.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Simon. That's awesome. Mac and Doug, for you, growing up with a parent who has Huntington's disease and in your community, what was that like for you as you were kind of going through school years and, you know, hanging out with your friends, and then as you kind of moved forward with your more dating relationships?
Did you want to go first, Doug?
I can't hear it. I'm going to have to log out and come back in. I can't hear what Corey's saying. I'll be back.
So for me personally, I had grown up knowing that my aunt had Huntington's disease, so I'd seen someone with Huntington's. At the time, I didn't know my mom had it, but I found out when I was a teen, and that kind of changed things because I had seen it before, so I kind of knew what to expect. And but it definitely changed a lot with how I made friends and what I talked about. Sort of like, at first I wasn't very open about my situation with Huntington's, but my family was always open about how we supported the community, how we were engaged in the community. But yeah, when I started getting older, I started becoming more open with my friends and realizing like that sharing is my choice and that I have a voice to share. So I had started talking to some of my best friends, telling them, and some of my friends had experienced something similar with their mom, like getting sick. So that made it a little easier for me, that I was lucky enough to have someone that had a similar experience to share with. And that kind of opened the door to me being as open as I am with my experience with HD.
Awesome. Great.
I think, Mac, you bring up such a great point. Just to add to that is, so often our sharing can bridge the gap for other people,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of like this "I'll go if you go" kind of standoff that happens so much in life.
Exactly.
Of like, okay, I'm nervous to share this thing, but I'm also nervous to share this thing. So since we're so nervous, none of us will ever share anything, and we'll suffer with it by ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
because you had the courage to actually share that with someone, you probably inspired them to have the courage to share that with you. And
Exactly.
it's the solitarity, it's the solitude that that's the killer, really, I believe. And I think that's why we're all so drawn to each other and so happy to be here together too, because we don't feel alone with this thing.
That's excellent points. Excellent points. Can you hear us now, Doug?
I can hear you now.
Okay, welcome back. So what was your experience sharing HD with your friends and family or significant others? What was that like for you guys?
I myself was very open with it, but that I think more relates to where I was at that point in my life when I met, I'd say my wife now. Back in the day when we first went on the first couple dates, because back then I was still very heavily involved in the HD community. It was very much what I did in my spare time. I was going to this conference or that conference or volunteering at camps or conferences all over North America, really. So it was something that I was always doing. So what do you do in your spare time? Kind of, typical question on a first date. That's what comes up. And I wasn't, I've never really been ashamed of it or hiding it or embarrassed by it. So it just was very straightforward with me.
For me, when I first met my girlfriend, I was about 15 years old, and that's when I kind of started opening up more about Huntington's and being very open about situations. So right off the hop, I was very open with her about my situation with my mom and how she was getting sick and what Huntington's was, and she was very open to it. I was just ecstatic that she was so open to taking on the situation. I told her like there's a chance that I have this, and she was still in it. And she almost like told me the other day that she looks up to my dad for that reason, that he was able to stick by and still, if she was put in the same situation as him, she would want to be like him in that way. And that just
Wow.
made me happy. And I'm just so lucky that she's been there for me and that she's supported me. And I got lucky, I'd say, with with that one.
I think
Sounds like it.
it's so much harder to think the best of people, and it's so much easier to think the worst of people, and what you think that they're going to take the easy way out, when necessarily that's not even usually the case. But it's so much easier to just be a pessimist and think the worst of people and think how weak people are, when it's a lot of people are really strong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Mackenzie, I mean, that's so cool. What a beautiful thing to share. And I mean, wow, that's really cool. I just wanted to add, there was one person I was in a serious relationship with that I shared, and she told her friend, and her friend told her to get out of the relationship. She said, you don't want to be in that position, 10, 20 years from now, 50, 40 years from now. And, I didn't blame her for it. I get it. Like, really. And the truth is, you might share that with someone and they might run in the opposite direction. That might happen.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. But I believe the alternative of keeping it a secret is much more dangerous. It's much more harmful in the long run. And like Doug just pointed out, it actually might be quite a beautiful surprise when you actually see how people do show up for you and with what you're dealing with.
So true. That's so true. All of you guys are in varying stages of relationships, from I think dating and living together to being engaged. And Doug, you and Allison are now married. Did you ever experience any fear of commitment prior to being in the positions that you guys are in now, because of HD in the family and your own kind of experiences with that?
I'd say I was a little afraid about commitment almost, because the time when I met my girlfriend, we had been together for long enough that um, when I got tested for Huntington's, there's always that little like, what if like I test positive? Like, does that change how she feels? Does that change how I feel? Sort of thing. But I was lucky enough to get a negative test result and didn't have to worry about that anymore. But I mean, there's always that little fear about commitment. Like, what if this really is happening? It's not just a like what if anymore. It is happening. If I get that positive gene. So I mean, I feel like there's always a little bit of hesitancy to open up to with my feelings because I bear them in myself and because I don't want to push too much on other people.
Mhm.
So it's definitely tough to commit sometimes because of that because you're worried. I mean, when it's someone that you trust enough and someone that has already been there shouldn't be that worry, but there always is in my life.
Totally.
Go for it, Doug.
I would say in my situation, it wasn't necessarily the case. I'd say like she was much more supportive of me than I was even of myself. And I wasn't even aware of that. Like, you know, when she decided she was in, she was all in, no questions asked. Whereas I was the one making sure, like, are you sure? Like, just trying to almost push her, almost giving her the option or the space to push away when she didn't want to. And I'm thankful she didn't take all those outs that I gave her. But you know, it's nice to have that kind of support in my life.
Absolutely.
For me, I'm engaged right now, and my partner, she's like, I mean, she knows I'm gene positive, and she's like, she doesn't even think I'm going to get it. She's like, you're just not going to get it. Something's going to happen, and somehow you're not going to get it. And I'm like, I'm with that. But in the past, I was absolutely scared to share and to commit. I actually saw it as I was going to torture someone. Like I saw it as like if I got in a long term relationship, I'm literally going to go ruin someone's life. And so I didn't want to be in a long term relationship. I sabotaged my relationships. I messed them up. I was mean. I was, you know, and I was thinking I was doing it to protect them, but it was all from my own fear. You know, so I think that's a normal thing to happen, and clearly led me on this path to being a relationship coach. So it's all a blessing. But now it's the position of there's fear that comes up still. You know, I don't really believe in fearlessness. I don't think that such a thing exists. But I believe in courage. And I get scared sometimes. I get flashes, you know, of me having trouble walking and talking and all this stuff. And she's there taking care of me, and maybe I've got a mood swing, or maybe some just doing something terrible that I've seen my dad do. And she's there, you know, suffering through it. And that breaks my heart. The thought of that breaks my heart. It's not something I want at all. And this is one of those, you know, I think scary parts of this disease that I don't really have an answer for. But yeah, that's there. It's in the background sometimes.
I think you touched on a really great point, Simon, in that this disease really pushes us to be vulnerable and to be transparent in front of people. And obviously everyone has a varying degree of comfort with that. But, you know, my experience has been that as much as we hate the feeling of being vulnerable, vulnerability brings intimacy and closeness in relationships. And without that, there's a divide that just won't ever be kind of managed in the proper way unless we are honest and truthful and all the things that come along with kind of expressing our ideas and our thoughts around this disease and about our potential futures.
I think that's wonderfully put, Corey.
Yeah, and that's kind of our gift actually with this thing. We're kind of forced to be. We're put in a tough position, and you can't really ignore it, which is kind of a blessing in a way that it's like, okay, well, this thing's pretty loud.
Yeah, for sure.
Not to mention all the coping skills that you develop over the years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no stranger to that.
So again, I want to encourage the viewers to feel free to ask questions if there's anything. We have about 9 minutes left in the session, so things are going quickly and the conversation is really going, but I don't want to ignore that there might be someone out there that's really dying to ask one of these three guys an important question. But in the meanwhile, when you guys think about where you're at now and where you've been and where you hope to be, what's important or what is it that you need from your friends in terms of support?
Who wants to start this one?
You can start it, Mac. Go right to her.
So for myself, I find the support I want from my friends is to just be there and not feel sorry for me. So when I first started sharing with my friends, there was always that kind of look like they felt bad for me. And I noticed over time, if I just addressed how I needed them to be, it was a lot easier for them to accept that. So like, if I was like, hey, so I have Huntington's disease in my family, and this is what it is. I don't need you to feel bad for me. I just need you to be there, support me when I need, and not treat me different, because just that hesitancy of telling someone always came from, what if they treat me different? Because I like how my friendship is, but if they treat me different, that's kind of going to make it a lot different. So there was always that hesitancy to share. So I felt that if I just addressed it kind of like how I need them to be there, it was a lot easier for them to figure out what they need to do, because they can't just read my mind and figure out, oh, he doesn't need me to feel bad. He just needs me to be there in case he needs.
That's awesome. I think, educating people is so important in order to make sure that we get our needs met as well as provide them with the support that they require.
Yeah, I think Mac nailed that one. I feel exactly the same way. Don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. I want them to see me as a person, a whole person.
Right. Doug, do you have anything to add to that question? Or
I say the first thing that comes to my mind is just the patience and understanding that comes with being friends with someone who comes from an HD family. Like, I know myself, and like I go down to visit my mom at least once a month or so, and it's a bit of a trek to get down. Like, she lives down on an island, and so by the time I get down there, and there's always a lot of work to be done around her house or tidying things up, or I always have stuff for her to do. So it's like I'm coming all the way down home, but I don't usually get to see my friends all that often. And there's just that, even though I can't see my friends as much as I'd like to, there's that understanding that there's other things that are more important right now. And just, there's no penalization for that, which I enjoy.
awesome. And real quick, maybe in a sentence before we go to the questions, because there's some nice questions that are coming in from the viewers now. If you each can give like a word or one sentence about what is it that you need from your partners at this point in your journey.
Love.
Word.
I think it's pretty easy to say that we all three of us probably thought at one point that there's, why would anyone want to love us in this situation when there's so much easier to love someone else? And I think we're all proof that there's someone out there for you.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, guys. So I'm going to go to the questions from the viewers. Rachel's asking, were there any resources that helped you feel more comfortable sharing your story?
YPAHD. It's definitely a tool and a resource that helped me come out of my shell and helped me, share my story. I never really was involved or in really the community as a whole until YPAHD came along, and I never envisioned myself being as involved as I am when I first went to a conference. So these tools and these resources that we supply have been very useful.
It all started with Gangnam Style for you, huh?
All back in 2013.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any resources that they used in terms of figuring out how they would share their story? Or
I felt that YPAHD definitely was a big thing for me, because as someone young, when you go to conference, it's an older group, and a lot of the sessions are towards more symptomatic people or older people, because that's when the disease is more progressed, right? So YPAHD was a little different because it was different seeing people that were closer in my age that had similar situations. So just being involved in the YPAHD community, I know that if I'm having trouble, I can reach out to like 20 people that I'm friends with that I meet once a year, and I still feel like we're like bonded for life almost, that like if I need them, I know they're there and they'll understand to some degree.
Thank you. Sorry, Simon, I don't want to not give you an opportunity, but
No,
I'm
go
also
for
very cautious of the time. Peggy's asking, what advice do you have for someone who's symptomatic?
In regards to?
Relationships, I'm assuming?
I would say make sure to lean into your support systems.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And one last question, I think. Do you find that there's a process of grieving that you must go through as you get prepared for the potential experience you're facing in the future?
Grieving before this potential experience? I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
I think it's a lifelong process. So I'd say, it's grieving isn't, you're not going through one step and you get to the next. It's always a one step forward, two steps back. You might have a good month, you might have a good day, you might have a good year, but then all it takes is just, one situation or one bad experience to set you back 4 or 5 steps. So it's, it's a lifelong journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think one of the things that's really supported me in going through this process and living with Huntington's disease is managing how much I spend with it. Like I couldn't do one of these conferences every 2 weeks. I'd go insane, but like I want to talk about it once in a while. And then I want to not talk about it all for once in a while. So it's like, it's being able to, I think, make that boundary for ourselves is hugely important for our mental health.
For sure. Pacing is so important because this is such a, it just takes over, or it can take over every aspect of our life. Last question, Doug, maybe you can quickly field this. How does someone get involved with YPAHD, and what does that involve?
You get involved with YPAHD by, you can reach out to us on our Facebook page. You could reach out to me personally. And what does that getting involved look like? Whatever you want it to be. Whether it's advocating, whether it's fundraising, whether it's, in just doing talks like this. We're always looking for people to do pretty much anything you can imagine. And to whatever level you want it to be, whatever experience you have. If you want to be involved every day, fine by me. If you want to be involved once a month or just pipe in once a year, we're just here to support other people as needed.
Awesome.
It's almost on your own terms how involved you want to be. Because I know there's especially some of us that want to be at every single thing we can and as involved as you were saying, but then there's some who just want to kind of be in the background and just see what's going on from a distance, like maybe joining in. This could be their first conference, and then they may not be active in YPAHD, which is totally fine because it's totally up to you how involved you are.
Great. Simon, Doug, and Mac, thank you so much for this discussion and for being vulnerable and sharing your personal experiences with us. We really appreciate your coaching and your insight through the many variables and facets of relationships. It's now time to wrap this up and to move on to our next session. So thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have great energy for the rest of your day.
Thank you. We love you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Get some sleep, Simon.
Thank you. Good night.
Cheers.
Bye, guys.